Good evening, everyone. Dan Henry here in the Forewarned Weather Center. Just want to give you an update now that things are starting to get a little dicey in parts of the area. Out to our west and northwest is where I'm talking about, where we've already had reports of icing on elevated objects, some elevated roadways, trees, power lines. So this is just the beginning of what's to come as this storm continues to unfold for the better part of the next 36 hours here in North Texas. And temperatures have been steadily coming down since this afternoon. You can feel that if you've been outside. So we got a lot to talk about. So let's get you up to speed here on what we're expecting. First, we've had a lot of questions about precipitation types. Why are we seeing freezing rain and sleet and not snow here predominantly in North Texas? Well, the answer is there is a layer of warm air. We call it the warm nose above the surface. It's from roughly 5,000 to 10,000 feet. So if you look at this graphic here, look up at the cloud level. It's snow above 10,000 feet. As the snow falls into this warm layer, it melts to rain. Now, what we have going on right now is where temperatures are above freezing, it's just cold rain. Where surface temperatures have fallen to freezing or just below, that rain, when it hits a sub-freezing surface, freezes on contact. And initially what you see are metal objects, trees, power lines that start to ice over before main roadways. The reason is that the main roads retain heat from earlier in the day, and it takes usually those main thoroughfares 2, 3, 4 hours for the surfaces to cool off, and then you start seeing problems on those main roads as well. As we head into tomorrow afternoon, what will happen is that the Arctic air is going to get deeper. It could be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet thick. And so that rain now falls back into air that's below freezing, and those raindrops freeze into small ice pellets. That's what we call sleet. And then finally, as we head off towards the tail end of the storm, this won't be likely until very late Saturday night, Sunday morning. That's when that warm layer of air really gets worn away. And then temperatures from the clouds all the way down to the surface below freezing, and that's when we can get some snow. That's going to be most likely, though, I think, to the north of the Metroplex. Although even here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I do think we could see a light layer of snow on top of the ice. I think Evan put it really best earlier today when he said the sleet, the freezing rain, that's kind of the piece of cake that we're going to see here, and it's the icing on top of that cake that's going to be the snowfall. So snowfall for most of us is going to be much more minor than the sleet and freezing rain accumulations. We've already seen this come to pass with some impacts after 7 p.m. north and west of the Metroplex. Probably in the next couple of hours, we're going to start seeing some ice develop. The initial reports of it in parts of the Metroplex, and not until after 3 o'clock in the morning for southern and southeastern portions of the area. Here's a change from yesterday. Yesterday we thought we might barely crack the freezing mark on Monday, 33. Well, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. I think we're going to fall shy of that, probably topping out around 29 or 30 on Monday. What's that do? That extends that 60 consecutive hours to now 84 hours of sub-freezing weather from just after midnight tonight until 1 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. So hopefully you all are prepared for an extended period of sub-freezing weather. That's still not as long as what we saw back in February 2021, 139 hours. Here's an example of how cold it is going to be. Sunday morning, 15 here in the Metroplex, probably down closer to 10 to our north and west. Winds are going to be blowing a good 20 miles an hour. That drives the wind chill down to -4. And Monday morning, with single-digit temperatures, we're still going to have about a 10-mile-per-hour breeze. That kicks wind chills down to -5. That is dangerously cold weather. That's the type that exposure on the bare skin, you can get frostbite within minutes. So please be mindful. If you need to go outside, removing some sleet, some ice from your sidewalks and driveways. Make sure you've got all exposed areas covered. All right, let's look at the Doppler radar right now. We've got the color mosaic on there. This is not perfect, okay? This is just a computer algorithm, so take this with a grain of salt, but it helps us distinguish on television a little bit better where we're seeing frozen versus liquid precipitation. Certainly in Mineral Wells, where it's 30, Bridgeport, Gainesville, Graham, Breckenridge, up in Wichita Falls, we know that you are all below freezing there, so it's definitely freezing rain, and at times you can have a little bit of sleet mixed in. Denton just dropped to 32 degrees, so we're kind of on the verge now of making that transition from rain to freezing rain there in Denton County, still holding at 36 at DFW, 37 Terrell, and 42 in Corsicana. That freezing line again will be slowly moving down to the southeast over the next several hours. Here is a bigger look at the regional radar, and you can see it's snowing up in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is expecting, believe it or not, in some cases up to 18 inches of snow. They could see an all-time record snowfall up around the Tulsa area. Temperatures colder up there, and so much of Oklahoma is not going to see the ice we're seeing. It'll be all snow up that way. Amarillo's temperature, by the way, just an hour ago was sitting at 6 degrees above zero. There's our moisture source. It's the upper level low that is still sitting southwest of San Diego. Notice that I've drawn in that green arrow, moving arrow there. That is the conveyor belt of Pacific moisture, warm Pacific moisture that's overrunning the Arctic air at the surface. And that is what's giving us, or will give us, our wintry mix this weekend. Look at how cold it is to our north. Wichita now is at 4. Amarillo's dropped another degree. They're down to 5. Omaha, 1. Fargo, minus 15. Minneapolis, 12 below. Chicago, 9 below zero. This is set up for us to be a long duration cold event with these northerly winds continuing to pump in this Arctic air all weekend long. And unfortunately, we are going to be stuck in the deep freeze for the better part of 3.5 to 4 days. Here's Futurecast. I pause it here at midnight. Notice that freezing line there. It may even be farther south than we see depicted here on this particular computer model. It could be down to DFW certainly by then. It will continue advancing down to the south so that by 6 a.m. I think most of North Texas now is experiencing wintry weather, freezing rain and sleet, oscillating between the two tomorrow morning. Still perhaps some very cold rain from Palestine down to the south and east. That freezing rain and sleet continues through midday. Then, as temperatures continue to drop in the atmosphere, as the Arctic air grows deeper, now we're going to be leaning heavily towards more sleet than anything else Saturday afternoon. There may be a 2-3 hour period where it's on and off in the afternoon, but there will be heavy sleet pushing in from the west and southwest late Saturday through Saturday night. In fact, don't be surprised if you actually hear thunder with the sleet. We call that thunder sleet, and if you're hearing thunder, believe me, you're getting heavy sleet when that's occurring. This is 11 o'clock. Notice the blue colors up there. Now we're starting to see a transition over to some snow. It's going to be most likely north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but you can see early Sunday morning some of those snow showers. There you go, right around 7 a.m., moving through the Metroplex off to the east. It'll likely result in some light snow accumulations on top of the ice, and then we might see a few passing flurries still Sunday afternoon. So how much ice are we talking about? This is where things get really tricky. Forecasting accumulations when you've got multiple precipitation types, multiple transition times. But in general, we are looking for 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice here in Dallas and Fort Worth and points west and north. I think the heavier ice accumulations will actually be to our south and east. You are going to lean more towards freezing rain for a longer period of time. And so right now it appears like areas from, let's say, Waxahachie, especially down towards Hillsboro, Corsicana, east of Terrell, Rains County, that's where we see the 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of ice. And then farther east, Van Zandt County, Athens, Palestine, you could be looking at even heavier ice accumulations. Remember, 1/2 inch is kind of the critical threshold there. You get over a 1/2 inch and weight really becomes an issue on tree limbs and power lines. Here's the other thing. Winds. It's going to be very windy. So you have branches and power lines that are coated in a heavy layer of ice. They're swaying back and forth with strong gusty winds. That even increases the possibility of power outages even more. So hopefully you're prepared for that, especially if you live on the east side and the southeast side of the Metroplex. Sleet snow totals here, starting north, 3 to 5 inches. That's probably 80% sleet, 20% snow up that way. Here in the Metroplex, it's probably 90% sleet with 10% snow on the back end of this. And then down to our south, it's almost really all sleet once you get south of the Metroplex, in addition to the ice accumulation. So again, these are separate accumulations. I showed you the ice first. Then on top of that ice from the freezing rain, these are sleet totals here, up to 1 inch of sleet in far southern portions of the area. There's your 7-day forecast here. You can see it is bitterly cold, single-digit low temperatures Monday morning. We don't get to freezing in the afternoon. We're back down to 13 Tuesday morning, and then I finally think we get above the freezing mark by about 1 o'clock or so Tuesday afternoon, and that should really help with some melting. So that's kind of the lay of the land here. Once again, we've got new computer model data that is streaming in right now. I'm going to get a good look at that, hopefully before we go on at 9 o'clock. And if I need to do some tweaking of the forecast and our forecast graphics, you'll see that on the air. So please join us for Fox 4 News at 9 and at 10 o'clock. And we've got special coverage. We're going to be on the air a lot and streaming all weekend long. So we got you covered, not only on the air, on our streaming channels, and also on our social media channels as well. Thanks for joining me. Stay safe, stay warm, and thank you for counting on us for your weather coverage here at Fox 4. Have a great night.